Hey guys, I know it has been a minute since I have uploaded a video for you guys to slightly indulge in, but here I am. I got through the wave of readings that I had to cover. I still have maybe like a couple more that I have to catch up on, but outside of that, I really appreciate you guys respecting my time and my space and my decision to kind of like take a step back when it pertains to doing personal readings. Now, I am doing them slightly, like 5%, because I did find like this really cool, like live chat feature that I didn't even know existed, and this is not promo, that I didn't even know existed until last week. So I did go ahead and add that to my website. So you can live chat with me in terms of getting your readings done if you have any sort of questions. Now, I'm only good for 15 minutes, and that's about it. But you can take advantage of that throughout the week from about 1 p.m. Central Time to about 8 p.m. Central Time. If there is something that is not necessarily making any sense and you just need a little bit of clarification on, from me, it is not a full, I mean, it will be, I guess, in a way like an in depth reading, but it's not like I've been doing. It's very low chill for me, which is totally great. But yeah, so you guys can take advantage of that option if you would like. Oh my God, where are my manners? Welcome back to my channel, people. I am Faith. Okay, this is my shindig, the Divine Faith. We talk about astrology, numerology, tarot. What else do we talk about, guys? I think we talk about everything. I was about to say except like celebrities, but that would be a lie. But we do talk about a lot of stuff, and the basis pretty much of my channel has always been to learn and to grow, and hopefully you guys can learn some things while you're here. It doesn't have to be about personal development. It could be about this stuff right here. It could be about astrology or certain aspects. You too may have these same aspects that we are looking at in your chart. So that is pretty much the basis of my channel and why I am here. So if you haven't already noticed, I'm going to be taking a look at Ariana Grande's chart, not her whole chart in depth. If you remember my previous video that I did on Jamie Foxx, I said the next couple of videos, I don't know exactly how many we're going to include in that category of couple, but the next readings that I'm going to do are going to be diving a little bit into these individuals' personalities. Now, in terms of personality, personality is actually tied to the moon. Okay, so a lot of these charts that we're going to be looking at are going to be focused a lot on the moon and aspects that they have to the moon. Some won't really have aspects that many. As you can see here with Ariana's chart, she literally only has one aspect to her moon, and it is the sun. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're also going to look and see if she has any fixed stars conjunct her moon. Now, her moon and Jupiter are exact conjunct one another. So I almost wanted to say fairy princess, but maybe it could give kind of like that particular type of energy with with the luminary conjunct that, well, I mean, they're both benefic planets. Like, they're both, they would say, quote unquote, good planets. And I've talked about before how Jupiter moon gives that support behind you when it pertains to the public. Okay, especially for her, the support behind her would come specifically when it pertains to Venetian things, since Libra is tied to Venus, okay? Or we could say the muses. So we could say in a way that the public may see Ariana Grande as somewhat of a muse, because I can kind of see that energy when we talk about the arts. Or if we just want to, take it to Greek mythology, if we talk about that energy there, we could say like her, like I said, being supported in that particular way. Who knows? Perfume, clothes, makeup, all those good things would be things that she could be inspiration for other people's companies, or it could be things that, she starts on her own. If I'm not mistaken, I believe she does have like a makeup something. So that's fine, because there's where that support comes from. Okay. Now, I don't think I did this particularly in the last couple ones whenever I looked at the moon or just any other planets. So this time we're going to do something a little bit different when it pertains to Ariana Grande. We're going to go down to her moon. Now, she has moon in Libra in the ninth house. And I know that's an ugly line, but just bear with me, okay? So before we get into what I was going to do differently, we can focus a little bit on this ninth house energy that she has when it pertains to her moon. Okay. Now, ninth house is tied to, I almost said our inner world, but I would say that's probably 12th house things, since 12th house is the house of dreams. It naturally is also the house of, Pisces. Okay. But the ninth house is philosophy, it is religion. So it also is like international waters, because ninth house is normally tied to Sagittarius. So it's like foreign things. So her having major success and stuff like that in other countries wouldn't surprise me at all, because again, her Jupiter and her moon conjunct in the ninth house is in agreement with that. All right. So with her moon being specifically in the ninth house, her personality may be one where she likes to travel, and she may even be someone where she likes changes. Maybe more so um repeated changes. So, we may have someone where, because also moon is the mind, right? So we may have someone where, I mean, of course, I don't know her, but it almost gets like someone who is coming up or going over in their mind all of these changes that they want to make. Maybe so much so that it's hard for them to sit still. That child where they can't even just sit down just for a second to even, who knows, just watch TV for a second or just have a snack, because they sit down for a second and then they're up. They have to be moving around. They even possibly have to be touching something. Now, her moon isn't fixated in a mutable sign or a sign tied to the hands like Gemini or Virgo, but still I kind of get this energy from her where it has to be like this constant movement, or for her it feels like I'm like kind of like failing, or it may even be that need for constant movement or repeated changes so that you guys don't forget about her, because maybe in some sort of a manner that could be like a fear of hers being forgotten about, especially whenever it pertains to women, and I'm going to get into that in just a second. Okay, but to continue with the moon in the um ninth house, the thing is, when it pertains to these changes that she makes, a lot of the times they are likely, possibly strategic. Because with the moon in the ninth house, these changes or these repeated life changes that you go through, they're normally done in a way where they are to your advantage, to your benefit. And that makes sense because, again, the moon is a beneficial planet in astrology, and so is Jupiter, and they both are conjunct each other. We know that Jupiter likes to expand the house or the sign that it is in. And since we know also that Libra right here is tied to Venus, okay, which we also know is tied to what? Love. Look at my stick man. Very Venus, I guess, symbol. But we know Libra is tied to, like I said, Venus, and Venus is tied to love, but also Venus is tied to wealth. I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if she decided, maybe coming up as she gets into her 30s, maybe 34, 36. We'll have to see if that shapes up, that she may actually decide to maybe gain citizenship in another country, another nation, and decide to live over there. And I would say the moon, in a way, would probably be in benefit to that, since she does have it in the ninth house. And we can maybe even say kind of Jupiter, in a way, is kind of like in its own territory, since Jupiter normally belongs to the ninth house anyway. Okay. But to continue again with the moon in the ninth, um, this is a placement where it is very conducive to the intellect and gives love of studying philosophic or religious suspects. Now, I feel like I feel like that applies, but I feel like it really starts to apply when the planet of your intellect comes into play, Mercury. her moon does not aspect her Mercury. So we might have to, I mean, we could take what I just said and keep it, but it may not necessarily be as strong since her moon is not making an aspect to this guy right over here in Cancer. Okay. Now, to continue again, when the moon is aspected by Jupiter, which it is in her particular chart, this can be someone who has an inclination towards religion and philosophy, or AKA manifestation. Even though her Jupiter does not make any aspects to Uranus or Neptune, which I can see as a signature of a powerful manifester, that's okay because she has she has her Jupiter conjunct her moon. So she may be super duper interested in manifestation, law of attraction, law of assumption, yoga, meditation, maybe any sort of those concepts where it is all about, what you put in your mind will be. Okay. She may be heavily into that, but she may not really talk about it as much. And I don't know why. That could just be her own personal preference to not talk about it as much. Okay. She may make note of it or mention of it at some point, but like I said, it's completely fine. So to continue forward again with the moon in the ninth house, okay? So now if the moon in the ninth house, because again, the ninth house is also our God-like complex. So, I mean, God-like complex can definitely be taken in more than one way. You can have that godlike complex and be on your high horse and be a pain in my ass as well as God's ass and everyone else that falls behind him. Yes, godlike complex, and you would need a good universal ass whooping to knock you off of your pedestal if you're on that particular type of time when it comes to godlike complex. But if you're in that type of godlike complex in a manner of belief, kind of like I said, the manifestation aspect of it, like I am, speaking in present tense, speaking it is already here, believing in yourself, all those good things, then that's probably fine. Because whenever you're on like a lower plane, whenever you're on a lower, I guess, area of evolution, if your moon is in the ninth house, then the effects can be quite different, especially if the planet involved receives any sort of negative aspects. And what do we have here? Her moon, in a way, is receiving a negative aspect to her sun in Cancer. Let me erase this. So she has Sun in Cancer. Of course, she just had a birthday not too long ago. So you see how this is making a square to this guy in the sixth house. Now, since her sun is in Cancer, okay, we are also talking about Cancerian traits. So Cancerian traits, we're talking about women, we're talking about music, we're talking about nursing, we're talking about, what is that, real estate. We're also talking about the mother. So with her moon being a negative aspect to the sun, we could say there may be somewhat of like those negative Cancer traits may come out, especially when it pertains to women, since the moon is involved and that's normally tied to women. So there could definitely be some negative aspects for her when it pertains to women. She may not necessarily have a healthy relationship with women. She may not necessarily have a healthy relationship with her mother. And that may also contribute to why, her being deep into other philosophical things, that may come from this, because she's trying to find a way to get closer to something, because this may have been or this may still be something in her life that is like a sore spot. It's hard for her to understand. It may be hard for her to understand why this connection is not necessarily popping off. Now, let's go back to the moon in Libra. So with the moon, with moon being here in Libra, we know Libra is about balancing the scales, right? So with the moon energy being right here, and we also know Libra is tied to what? Relationships, because it's seventh house as well. Naturally, seventh house. It's also can be tied to divorce. So with this natal moon in Libra, we may even have someone whose mother was too fixated, because again, this would be a negative aspect to the sun. We may have someone whose mother was too negatively fixated on trying to balance the scales when it comes to maybe all the children that she had, or when it possibly pertains to her father or relationships. So then we have a topsy-turvy, rockety of the boat type of situation when it pertains to the relationship that she may have with her mother. Because, again, since Libra tries to balance the scale, it gives me that energy where they're always trying to make everybody happy, especially if you have personal planets in Libra. Now, if you just have like, your midhaven, or which would be your 10th house, or your rising sign in Libra, but you don't have any planets there, it may not necessarily be as like heavy as if you were to have personal planets in Libra. Okay, so it would still possibly relate in terms of my description for this Libra and balance thing, but like I said, it may not be as heavily felt. Okay. But like I said, if she had a mom possibly that was way too fixated when it pertains to trying to satisfy or nurture a personal relationship as well as being a mom, she may have not necessarily did it correctly. So then you have a child who feels like that they missed out on their mother's love because she's too busy trying to she's so fixated on balancing that she's afraid to lose stuff. So then she's possibly pulling herself in multiple different directions. And Ariana possibly in some sort of a manner may kind of like do the same thing. She's pulling herself in too many different directions, trying to balance it all, or like I said, trying not to necessarily be forgotten, which, that can be kind of daunting for some people who have experienced that high of, you know, people, knowing everything about them, et cetera, et cetera. And then when it drops off a little bit and it seems like that, okay, people are still noticing me, noticing all this stuff, but it's not as much as it was before. Panic may ensue. The mind may start to wonder too much. The mind may start to, like I was saying before, do that thing where you are going through all these scenarios in your mind. You're trying to figure out a way how you can implement all these changes in your mind. And a lot of times, again, since, you know, let's be honest, the moon can be selfish. We're not even going to sit up here and act like it can't be selfish, okay? It's the same way as the sun, because they're the only two planets in the solar system that do not retrograde. So that lack of self-reflection can be very clear when it pertains to heavy sun, heavy Leo, let's say that, or heavy Cancer placements. The self-reflection has been lost upon them. And it may take something that is unfortunately life changing in a way for them to snap out of it, or they may just never snap out of it. Sometimes it can possibly come across as a victim complex in a way. Again, if there is heavy Cancer, heavy Leo placements, that could be a negative downside when it pertains to that. Because, like I said, they don't retrograde. And normally, those retrograde planets, they retrograde for a reason, because we're going back, it's like a revision. Those other planets go through a revision. The moon and the sun do not. So it can be that energy where it's just like, I'm not doing anything wrong. What's the big freaking deal? When literally they could be doing something wrong, like hurting people in the process, especially when it comes to their emotions. Specifically with her, in her moon being in this particular placement, with her in her mind thinking of all these particular changes that she wants to implement, she's not thinking about how these changes are going to affect anybody, because it solely goes down to it being about her. And again, a lot of that is balance, a lot of that, because the moon is reflective, the moon reflects its light. So a lot of this could just be habits that she picked up from mother, or it could be from grandmother. I mean, also with her son being in the sixth house, which is of health, our health. I wouldn't even be surprised if, she struggles with health issues, not definitely, but possibly struggling with health issues with son being here in this particular house. Now let's scroll back on over to the sun in the sixth house. Okay. So with the sun right here being in, like I said, now another thing as well, the sun in the sixth house of loss of happiness through marriage to me is not surprising that we may have someone, either she gonna break up a happy marriage. I'm not saying that that's literal because it could just be, I'm not saying that she's gonna break up a happy marriage, but you have to be careful because the sun, I mean, remember, like I said, the moon shows the light here. So another thing I would say is that she doesn't want people to forget about her. She has to be careful when it comes to doing this right here, showing the light when it pertains to if she is befriending people that are married or might as well be married. She has to be careful about that because, it's one of those things where for women, other women who's seeing this, it's just like, we'll give you a pass at first because you're young, but it ain't going to be too many more passes as you get older. And this may be something. And if the issue is, if you give her a pass at first, she possibly is going to be expecting that same pass as she gets older. And remember, like I said, those two planets where this involved, they do not retrograde. So we have someone where I know this is going to sound terrible, but it's like common sense has been lost upon you, you know. So it there it becomes to the point, like I said, where it does not become an excuse. So she has to be careful because then you may have women on a hate train towards you. And the thing is, you need women to support this energy here. Okay. So I mean, I don't know if she possibly gets along better with maybe men than women, or it may seem that way, or we may even have someone who may possibly bed their friends secretively, um, because I don't know why I just said that, but I did because look, her third house is in Aries, right? Your third house is your neighborhood, your neighbors. So, and then her third house lord is in the eighth house. I don't think Mars might be at fall in Virgo. I think we went over this before, but I can't remember. But I think it is. Let me see. No, Mars is at fall in Cancer. Okay, either way. Either way. So, hopefully not, because that would just not be good if we have somebody who has a tendency to, bed their neighbors. The good thing here is, I just realized this. She has Mars opposite Saturn, so in terms of like business, she's good there. So I guess the support isn't going to go immediately in the drain. Maybe if she learns to keep her affairs more quiet. But the thing is, it's almost just like she always gets caught in like 4K in a way whenever she's in another country. It's like, girl, but it's so weird because she could possibly do the same thing on her home base or in the United States. And it may not really be that big of it will be a big thing, but it won't necessarily be as blown out as it would be if you are caught in another country. So it's like, look, if you're going to do your dirt, at least almost bring it back to US soil. Okay, but like I said, hopefully she's not betting her neighbors. I really would hope not, because that would not be good. Okay, but and I just realized another thing as well. Her 12th house is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is tied to Jupiter. And guess where her Jupiter is at? Over here in the ninth house. And the 12th house is tied to bed pleasures. Okay. So 12th house is also tied to cheaters. But I say, it's almost like not it's almost like taking your mistress to another country because you don't think you're going to get caught, and you end up getting caught worse than what you would have done if you would just stayed your ass at home. So she has to be careful about that. Okay. This future reference, because it may not necessarily stop. And the reason why it may not necessarily stop is, again, she has these two conjunct one another. So unfortunately, we have though that influx of people who will be behind her and saying, "Oh, I understand. I kind of like see why you would do that." Remember, like I said, sense has been lost upon you, and you lack the accountability. Okay, I get the point in terms of, moving on, going for better when it pertains to not being treated the best. But if let's be freaking real, it can't sit up there and try to play this code every single time like it's possibly always the other person. That does not work for the long term. But she's probably here for a good time, not a long time, but she technically is here for a long time because, like I said, even if she falls out of the public eye, she still has business to fall back onto because she can generate that income. Her her second house and her eighth house are connecting. Now, I would probably say the real business that she probably is looking for that's going to give her that shebang of the buck will probably be whenever she comes older after her Saturn return, which should be like now. That may be whenever she those ideas are starting to click in terms of what she could really do in terms of business. Okay, like Virgo is tied to fashion, so the next thing may possibly be clothes. Her Saturn is in Aquarius, so Aquarius is tied to the internet, excuse me, hopes, fears, wishes, community, um, um, event planning, celebrity industry. Okay, so we may have another celebrity clothing situation going on here when it pertains to her. Hers is in the eighth house. That moon in, I mean, not moon, that Mars in the eighth house is very, very sexual. Don't get it twisted. I know it's in Virgo, but naturally speaking, the eighth house is tied to Scorpio. And Mars in that eighth house energy is very sexual. It's very, trying to think of a good example. It pulls you in, it's magnetizing, but it's not necessarily in a house where everybody can see. So, that sexual energy of hers or that energy right there is something else. I mean, if we're even talking about, especially when it pertains to possibly older men, but, um, or nerds, that may possibly be like her preference. Kind of, and there's nothing wrong with that, kind of nerdy, maybe in a way. Maybe, who knows? Maybe when she gets much older, it could be dating like a businessman. But like I said before, that Mars energy here is very just like, it's hot. It's hot, hot. But again, like I said, a lot of people, you may look at her just from a public standpoint and you can be like, I can see it, but you really don't see it until those curtains close, or you really don't see it unless you are literally standing like right next to her. You come into her presence and all of a sudden there's something very alluring, and honestly I don't think it's feminine. I think that alluring type of energy is actually quite masculine because it's like it's very strong to me. And like especially, like men, I think probably more so men, okay? When they get in her presence, it's just like there is something about this one, and I just cannot necessarily place my finger on it. And it's kind of interesting how I said it gives me very masculine. She has her Mars making a sextile to her sun, and that's where that very alluring type of, I guess, sexiness type of energy is coming from her. That's what I'm saying. It's not giving as feminine as I was expecting. I mean, there's feminine there, but like that particular type of magnetizing type of energy, I can kind of see the same thing when it pertains to Beyonce. It's not as feminine as people want to, as people think. It's very just like, oh my God, like, wow, why am I feeling these feelings? So let's be clear. She's never really going to be without options when it pertains to people wanting her. And but the people you probably would be surprised in regards to the people that actually want her as opposed to the people that she chooses. But it feels like she may definitely go maybe more so for the kind of nerd or a little the people that have sense, because sense has been lost upon her. Um, she may go more for men that are kind of like filling in those blanks, filling in those blanks when it pertains to her. Yeah, it's very, again, like I said, it's very masculine, but in an interesting way. It's also kind of submissively masculine, if that's a thing. I mean, you would understand what I'm saying if you like were close, if you got close to her in that way. Honestly, I kind of want to be a little nosy, and I kind of want to look at possibly her. I know this is old news, and he has moved on, and he has a child. But there was like that thing going on when it pertained to her and Big Sean, and how allegedly, she still had something going on whenever Big Sean was with the Janae at the beginning. I mean, that would be interesting chart to look at, because it's like something about this one. And I'm not necessarily saying it in a bad way. And I think that's probably why she's going to be good at business, or having, big business that, you know, is not owned by somebody else, or she's not like a minority owner like Kim Kardashian and Skims. I think she owns like 13%. That ain't nothing for you, for it to be yours. That's nothing. But anyway, nonetheless, still it's still successful, so good for her. But Ariana may be able to, she could go up to maybe like 50%, or 60%. That's what I want my ownership stake in this particular company to be. But again, so I really think that's something really good that works for her, that she may need to lean more into, but she may start to lean into that maybe now, as she's coming out of her Saturn return. Okay. So Saturn return is just whenever Saturn returns back in the same sign it was in whenever you were born. So we just got out of Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn is moving into Pisces. So now people who have Saturn in Pisces natally, they're possibly going through it a little bit. It just depends on where it's placed and stuff. For her, her Saturn was having an effect on her second house of her self worth. Not about income all the time, her self worth, insecurities. Okay. So that could be something that maybe she's been working on, or if she hasn't been working on, Saturn's still going to be kicking that ass, as she moves on into being older. But let's hope she learned her lesson. Anyway, so moon in 6 degrees. Now let me actually go on over to my PDF and we'll take a look here. So here's my astrology PDF that I have. So let's go down to the number 6. The number 6 is tied to Venus, but in this particular cheat sheet, I would say the number 6 here is Gemini. Isn't that funny? Gemini, the lover's card in tarot, actual, lover's choices, love, compassion, caring, generosity, devotion. Remember I said is masculinely submissive. There's that devotion energy right there, which totally gives me submission. I am hopelessly devoted to you. Who sung that song? Oh, that's Grease, isn't it? Olivia Newton-John, right? Yes. It kind of shocks me how I know these names. It's like it's something stored, like a file system. Anyway, now since the challenges with her moon specifically, if we're talking about personality, is look at this: find love for those who may appear undeserving of it, and this kind of makes sense why she goes for who she goes for. The ones who the world deems as, how could you possibly love that one? They have this going on, they have that going on, or they're just completely weird, or they're not relatable, or who knows, they stink. It could be any of that. But for her, maybe in a way, this is part of her karmic lesson, moving through these particular type of situations, moving through these type of relationships. And trust me, I am not giving this a pass at all, because you don't need to love everybody that is undeserving of it. I get it. You feel some type of way if they are without. I get that, but you are not Mother Teresa. And you should not try to strive to be Mother Teresa, because that is kind of crazy. Okay. Learn to open your heart up to life, but this can be sort of like a double-edged sword, because if you're opening up your heart too much to life, then what do you think is going to happen? Bad stuff, unfortunate things. Now, the challenge is here, if we're talking about the number 6, jealousy, self-pity. We talked about that. Remember I said victim mentality? I totally see that self-pity is given very 6 of cups. Too nostalgic, too living in the past, resentment, envy. But these may also be things that she experienced from women, but it may not necessarily be the women that you think. Again, it could be women who are possibly in marriages with these particular people, possibly in relationships with these particular men, especially if she has somewhat of a friendship with them. But remember, I said, with her moon being in the ninth house, for her, the movement is always in accordance with what is going to be to her benefit. So, if she, let's say for example, if she is dating a musician, what if the benefit for her is to have material, to be inspired, because I'm struggling to be inspired. So now I am going for a relationship that's going to help bring out this inspiration. If she's going for someone who is an actor, the same thing could apply. I need to, it's like, I mean, she may be a really good method actor, but in order for her method acting skills to come into play, it seems like she feels that she has to put herself in real life situations tied to the character that she's playing, which can be kind of dangerous. So Miss Ariana Grande may actually be pretty good when it pertains to Broadway, but I struggle a little bit with her, like I said, when you may take it too seriously. I get it. I get it. I get that, you are serious about your craft, but some of this, some of it needs to be thrown in the trash. But it would be anything, actor, musician, or businessman. Now, if she has a relationship with a businessman, you'll never know. In my opinion, I don't think you will, because it's going to be very private, off the books, off of the grid. But what is the benefit for her? To know how to run my business better, or shoot, to get a business, for you to invest, for you to fund my business. And at the end of the day, you don't even realize you just got bamboozled, because you don't even have a stake in this business. If you do, it's a very small percentage, even though your financial advantage is way better than mine. But you would never know, because I'm good like that. you know? So I really don't have any problem with Ariana, but I know a sneaky person when I see one. And she got the little bit of sneakiness in her. But again, it works to her advantage. So, you can't get onto her too bad, I guess. But that envy, and I feel like that envy, that jealousy, that resentment, especially since, again, we're talking about the moon and it is conjunct Jupiter. Jupiter is normally tied to the husband. So, and what was her Jupiter in? Her Jupiter's on 5 degrees, so she would do better with a husband that probably is maybe in the public eye, instead of somebody who is like working a 9 to 5, since her Jupiter is making an aspect to her sun in the sixth house. The sixth house is your job. You know what I'm saying? That's what it is. So that would be difficult for her, but also at the same time, she may find being in relationships with celebrities also difficult as well. But she may find it's more difficult to deal with a normal person, because of where her sun is placed and is making an aspect to Jupiter. So it's like it doesn't really expand like you may want it to. The marriage doesn't necessarily go anywhere like you may want it to. But that's the thing, another thing as well, I had to give it to her. She will probably try maybe everything once, or at least try to be a good sport about it. So I give that to her, because I would say that is a positive, to be open minded in a manner where you will try. Okay, that's fine. But I think, like I said, she may find that this is just not the bee's knees. Dating someone, or not dating, being into a very committed marriage, however you want to label it, with someone who is quote unquote normal. Um, mm-mm. Envy, jealousy, resentment may end up being the themes that play out in that particular type of relationship. And maybe she does this because she is on the reverse end if she's dating a celebrity. On her end, it may turn into envy, jealousy, resentment if she's dating a celebrity from her side. Like now all of a sudden she's becoming envious, she's becoming too jealous, she's having all this resentment. So this may possibly be why maybe she goes the other direction for quote unquote normal people. But then the energy just ends up getting what? Reflected back to her. Okay. So let's see if she has a fixed star conjunct her moon in Libra. Ugh. Probably this one. Zanaya, order, congeniality. I knew it. Very, you know, I guess very pageant ish. Excuse me. Lovable nature, refinement, honor is a very fortunate one. And I would probably give this one as well. Suave. I'm telling y'all, it's like she got the sauce, she got the juice, but you don't understand where it's coming from. Oh, I know where it's coming from. That Mars in the eighth house is working, especially with that Mars making an aspect to her sun. Okay, I think Tiana Taylor has that. I think Cardi B has that. It's a very underrated planet aspect to me. Okay. Um, Where else? Okay. Personal charm, dissipation, dramatic ability. I did not say method actor. The wreath of jewels in Bernice's hair. Now, I don't know much about the backstory behind Bernice's hair, and because this is definitely going to be Greek mythology, I don't know the backstory behind that. But I've kind of been feeling a little bit of an itch to read more about Greek mythology, so that's probably going to be my next thing that I'm going to do alongside studying more about astrology. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, so that is interesting. She does have a fixed star there, which is, So let's take a look at the degree, the definition of the degree when it pertains to. Let me make this bigger so you guys can see. When it pertains to her Libra Moon sixth house, this particular PDF that has degrees in depth is actually available on my website. You guys can just go under the astrology tab. It's there. It's there. I say this all the time. You guys, I give resources so you can use the resources so you're not sitting up here acting like that sense has been lost upon you as well. We're not going to act like that. Not over here with me. You can try that at somebody else's house. Don't work over here because you will have sense over here, or we're going to get you some sense. Okay. But anyway, Libra. Let's see. Where are you? Okay, Libra, 6 degrees to 7 degrees. A naked man in the act falling from a rock into a lake. It indicates a person of susceptible and weak nature, easily led away and liable to be drawn to his destruction by the opposite sex. What do you know, people? We've been talking about it. The native may attain to a high position in life, but whatever his position, he is in danger of a fall. We talked about it. Let him take heed against the allurement of the world. It is a degree of falling. What I say? What I say? Women. I don't necessarily think it's going to be men. I mean, men, I guess, in a way, could be to her fall, but not really. It's more so the women behind these men, the women attached to these men, that is going to be the downfall. Because again, envy, resentment, jealousy, and not saying resentment is something that, they are not entitled to have, especially if you being a little janky when it pertains to these particular connections. So we can't say they're not entitled to feel that way, especially if they've been blindsided or especially if they've been in a particular situation where they're just like, and remember, oh, another thing as well. Remember I said she may bed her neighbors or friends. Imagine that. Imagine you have this man and he has a girlfriend and you become friends with the pair. And then you end up sleeping with the man. Couldn't have been me because you would have got a good country backhanding from me. But she's probably very calculative about that because she probably knows who is going to let it slide and who ain't. I mean, imagine her doing that to somebody from Kentucky. She would have a good ass Kentucky ass whooping. Okay. Yeah, and deserved, rightfully deserved. I'm gonna be honest, but I'm just saying. So, guys, this has been a chart reading when it pertains to Ariana Grande, just taking a look at her personality and some other things that I picked up on. Thank you again for sticking around. Make sure that you hit the like button. If you want to subscribe to the channel, don't be afraid to hit the button, because we talk about a lot over here. It's not a one trick pony. I'm not a one trick pony. So this channel is not a one trick pony. So thank you again for sticking around. Of course, drop your suggestions. I'm always open to suggestions in terms of who you guys want me to look at next, and I will see you later.